I apologise for you trying to read Steve's novel in the background. Yeah. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my dyslexia. Previously, I did a kind of piece that was about astrophysics and used live data from the LIGO, which is a laser interferometer, which is designed for gravitational wave observing. And it was very conceptual, and I kind of just had to kind of stand and say thank you and then leave, without having said anything, but letting the computer and the code do the talking. So now I'm on the other side of the fence now, writing a little bit about creative process and dyslexia. I was 10. I had a voracious reading habit. I was a nerd, and I'd amassed a sizable collection of awards for excelling in biology, art, mathematics, English, and balsa wood model making, and for being an exemplary student, albeit one with a pudding bowl haircut and a disproportionately chubby face. This was 1992. I found the text was too small to differentiate easily between the letters, and I told my parents, and they, rather than test me for dyslexia, took me to the optician. The prescription were tortoise-shell glasses, the kind you'd expect to see on the face of a depressed 70s weatherman. The problem persisted, and it was the first time I'd become conscious of the fact that every letter on a page quivered like it was in developing fluid, the inky purple, red and green series of silhouettes, when a camera flash splits into a visual echo of 6 or 7 hovering squares. Then, as now, sentences on a page undock into 3 dimensions, and numbers and letters throb in light space, like reviewing the footage of a car wrecked in order to test the roll cage. 2 words, a verb and an adverb, like 2 different makes of hatchback, collide and slowly splinter, crumple as an off-white airbag of leading between the type, balloons into view, and the crash test drivers of the senders levitate, and the clip starts over, and the cars begin again, dummies back in their upright positions, the letter R with its head hanging over the safety belt, the letter Q ready for anything, its foot to the floor, where verb and adverb have returned quickly. Take the word magnify. This becomes magnum, magic, magnifique, mollusk, melanoma, mondrian, and then it springs back into place as an orderly queue of letters in the word magnify. In addition to this buffering and negotiating of text in the visual field, there's a synesthetic colouring and texture to language which is also cause for hesitation, careful scrutiny. The word planet tastes like camphorwood. Wednesday blurts in egg yellow yolk drizzling down a white concrete wall. A border is here between the real and the history of past experience, which is being continually re-lensed and relearned. On a computer screen, as I type, the letters like magicians emerge from an impossibly thin line, retain and ghost away from their white space before the curtain of vision, interchanging their shape with blue and red colour and diminishing senselessness. This effect builds to the apex of cognizant understanding, like 2 opposing mirrors in a lift, trailing interpretations as far as the local illumination allows. And somewhere between the staircase of reflections is the breathing, present, tense word I want to reach and catch. When reading, I have to slowly retrace my steps through what I have just read, gripping a mental rail, even though I might well have memorized it by then. And as fellow dyslexic Albert Einstein once said, it's not that I'm so smart, it's just that I stay with problems longer. As Melinda will be able to tell you in a minute, the brain cannot be satisfactorily split into the left logic, right creative hemispheres. As you listen to this talk, however, the left hemisphere of your brain is rife with activity. Its primary focus, although there are variations, is language, reading, analytical thought, and mathematics. I'm using mine at some indefinite point in the past to write this for you, and simultaneously at a point in time where I'm reading it aloud to you, here in the Harvey Tree Gallery. Time present and time past are both perhaps present in time future, says Eliot, using his left hemisphere at some point to unpick his words, and a neat vignette that Ted Hughes wrote to a childhood friend shortly before death. Before us stands yesterday. The right hemisphere shares a little of this work you're doing too, but its larger concerns are creativity, intuition, and spatial activities. Here, hand me that cup. Tell me a story about a flying chair, or one about an insomniac sea monster. Draw me a cloud. How much is the tip again? Tell me, where exactly do you see yourself in 10 years? What's the sensation of gripping the cold chains of a playground swing? Do you remember someone else being in this memory? How does it make you feel? Is that square smaller? or is it just further away? I've often felt a good poem, like the sudden noise of a spoon hitting the bottom of the glass, has the ability to ride the same synaptic network as superstition to the soul. And by soul, I'm using poetic license. What I mean is the arboreal human animal, the breathing, beating, environmentally responsive organism id that we teach to acknowledge as a means of transport, hedonism, and calculation. As much as the size of your ears, the slight lisp when you speak, the symmetry of your face, however fearful, or your sleeping habits and ability to throw the right size of stone at a window at just the right speed can all vary from person to person, so do synaptic pathways within the structure of the brain. If every brain was laid out in the shape of England, and if every road on the map was such a synaptic pathway, then the M32 might run from Dover to Manchester, but on its way it might go via Bristol, or Cardiff, or Thursday, or Wakefield. fMRI scans have shown that signals travelling across the brains of those with dyslexia become delayed, largely in a similar spot, the right frontal lobe. So what part of England is the right frontal lobe? You might imagine this provincial one-horse village with a sense of smell. Or what about this multi-storey car park in Lewisham? Is this where you store that memory of your sister's house last winter when you crouched over burning paper? And what's this one-way street in Dorking? The instructions for how to shake someone's hand? Or the Highland Aviation Museum in Inverness? A quote from Shakespeare that runs as a small holographic projection of a man holding a skull saying either, "I knew him, Horatio," or "I knew him well," over and over, or that sense of bittersweet pride you felt watching an old friend in a windy October finally saying, "I do," trying to brush a returning hoverfly away from his face. In fact, your right frontal lobe is a bustling metropolis of who am I as a person, awareness of facial expressions, problem solving, assorted memories, speech, motor skills. You can imagine the detective in a novel is tied halfway down his chest as he impatiently slides a picture of a smiling man in a Hawaiian shirt across a cold steel table as the detective says, "Does this photograph mean anything to you?" And your right frontal lobe quickly trying to draw together the strands of an answer. It also tends to be the seat of more negative emotions than the left frontal lobe. This probably explains why, as a dyslexic, I tend to be a harsh editor, and why so many detective stories have the interviewee reply, "I don't know what you're talking about, copper. Now where's my lawyer?" Dyslexia affects about 10% of the UK population, with 4% of us being classified as severe dyslexics. At the time of writing, the BBC recently reported this figure could be 3%. In the US, studies have shown that up to 20% of the population exhibit signs of mild dyslexia. On both sides of the Atlantic, it goes undiagnosed for an entire lifetime. Here, in the Hardy Tree, around 8 of us in this room right now have dyslexia. Listening to the experiences of people who have struggled with it is a quick and easy way to shed pounds of happiness and feel miserable in minutes. So often young women and men are sold short. In a documentary called Embracing Dyslexia, a young man turns to the camera, says, "I was told by my teacher, well, someone has to stack the shelves at Walmart." I was first diagnosed with dyslexia when I was 17. I was taken to a wood-panelled room and told by an educational psychologist that I would have to significantly reduce my career expectations. And just like that, ambition was put on death row with no chance of a fair trial. The only thing that was first class about my results was the postage. Written expression is an area of particular weakness. On a relatively simple writing task, Harry was not able to keep to the brief satisfactorily and consequently produced a reasonably expressed but significantly incomplete piece of writing. Taking an isometric career test, I was told I could either be a priest, a woodcutter, or a speech therapist. I think I probably would have been happy in those careers, and poet in the traditional bardic, shamanic, bizarre sense. It's a good amalgam of all three. Wasn't it Heaney who said that the role of the poet was to account to and for the tribe? I was given extra time in exams, which is great for anyone wanting 15 more nerve-shredding minutes in which to sweat about having no clue as to whether or not you've answered the question or filled A4 with the gibberings of a clotted mind. I remember the piercing frustration as a teenager, staring blindly at my own crap handwriting, as though swimming to the bottom of a pool before opening my eyes. The speed it takes me to read, analyse and respond, and to do so accurately, varies wildly. It's something that goes on every day, not just for me, but for a lot of other adults living with dyslexia. Resources and support are available, thankfully. I've been surprised to learn that stress headaches and my occasional stammer might well be connected to my old friend dyslexia. And most strange of all, how I perceive the passage of time. I remember that the next time I stick chips in the oven. This, however, is only the beginning of my research into dyslexia. There's plenty more to be done. I'm just going to finish with a poem that I wrote. I got asked to write a made-up word, and so I came up with this word. which is called Tele-Sue, one of the hundreds of people who look like Sue from far away, but at close range are in fact strangers. Buttoning on too late, the Hill train sparking slow away into the sleet. But you are not you, but a Tele-Sue, coming in from the wings of the platform to play a cameo. And I remember the background buzz of a fancy dress shop, as past tense as your maiden name, the pop and slop of trying on fancy dress masks of cowheads, stormtroopers, and album faces. Streaks as the elastics stripped our hair, stooped, almost kissing, as I freed you, and you freed me, and lost touch. Now you're just a Yahoo email address in a year, a smudge of a photo from that Halloween party, you and your Carlsberg leaning focusless into the frame. And here in the sleet, the Tele-Sue lifts a favourite coloured scarf against the wind. But Sue, that real Sue, there are days I don't believe in doubles or daydreams, when you're behind every windscreen of every car coming the other way.